I can see why some people are nervous, because the moment you go on record about it, what is God, right?
Yeah.
Potentially half the planet are going to hate you.
Well, then here's the great actor,
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman, and he is saying all these very sensitive things about God.
Well, I just believe that when you speak on anything, you should speak openly, freely, without censorship, unprepared, as best you can. My name is Hugh Jackman, and we're here about an hour's drive out of a place called Kununurra, which is on the border of West Australia and Northern Territory. And this behind me, I believe, is the Ord River, but someone this morning told me maybe the Denham River. Regardless, I should be giving you the Aboriginal names for them, because they are the owners of the land here. But we're on a property that is called Carlton Hill, and Carlton Hill is in fact owned by the Packer family. Even though the traditional owners are always with us on set. So that's geographically where we are, and I'm here shooting a film for Baz Luhrmann with Nicole Kidman called Australia. So here we are in the middle of it, the film and the country.
I think it's probably the first time I've ever heard you speak with your own Australian accent. Everything's been either, frightfully English. Going forward in time.
That's right. Yes, that's right. No, the first week I did on this film, which is called Australia, we were shooting in Sydney, and there were a bunch of extras, and this extra came up to me after about half an hour and said, it's great to meet you. Are you enjoying being in Sydney? I said, it's been amazing. And said, because it's a great city, and if you need some help finding things, I said, well, I kind of know. And then the bloke next to him was like going like this, because he obviously thought I was from America. And I just let him play along for about a week. It's a great place you have here. My God, the harbour. It's amazing.
Harbor. Oh, the Opera House.
The Opera House, wow.
So I'm going to ask you some very simple questions. And I'm going to start with the simplest of the lot.
Yeah.
Hugh, what is God?
Simple question, what is God? Take about a lifetime or lifetimes to work it out. I suppose, what is God, for me, is my idea of consciousness. God is not a thing, something you can necessarily see. It is within everything and outside of everything. So I believe that God, the absolute, whatever you want to call it, the self, is unchanging, is therefore pretty much everything I'm seeing has an element of God, but you couldn't call it God because everything changes. You, me, where we're sitting, this river, this planet has a life cycle, birth, death. But my feeling about God is that it exists beyond that, beyond those laws of nature. It is somehow separate to the laws of time, matter, space. And that's about as close as I've come to any realisation of what God is.
So you don't see God as a bearded chap up in the sky telling us to be good, and if we don't, we'll go to hell, and if we are, we'll come to heaven.
I don't see God as a bearded chap, although I used to for many years. I was brought up in a Church of England family, went to Sunday school. My father's quite religious. He wasn't until he was about 26, I believe, maybe 28, and he went to a Billy Graham crusade and was converted with my mum. My mum did the usual thing, which is after about 6 months started to, wean off it a little bit. My father never did, and is incredibly religious and goes to church every week, and in fact has done almost sort of missionary work after he retired as an accountant. So I was brought up with a very strict Protestant view of what God is and our place next to God. And that consisted of some deity, a guy with a beard, telling us what to do, marking us on our behaviour, and hopefully granting us entrance into heaven. I think around about 14 or 15 was when I started to kind of, and I by the way, I fully bought it. I would say I was a born-again Christian. And I remember at the time, in fact, someone saying to me, you know, most of you who are here at church, by the time you're 21, 22, will fall away from this. And it's a sad fact, but very few will stay on that narrow path. And I remember thinking, there's no way I'll be one of those. There's no way. I'm not going to fall away. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be one of those. And I have. But funnily enough, I probably feel like the path to discovering why we're here, who we are, what it's all about, is truly a narrow path. I don't think many people follow it. But around 14 or 15 was when I thought, my father's idea and this church's idea of what God is just doesn't make sense. How can only 5% of the world be admitted into heaven under these laws? Why is it that they're largely wealthy white people are the only people sort of heading there? Why aren't the Buddhists going? Well, that's what started me to question. That's where the questions. This just doesn't make logical sense to me. Why? There's too many questions unanswered, and every time you put forward, when I was 15, say, or 16, every time I put forward the question, it would either come back to me as, well, the Bible says, or have faith. You just have to have faith. And so around about that age, I thought, it's not good enough for me. The idea of just have faith. If I have a question, I should feel sated. I do believe there is an element of faith to life. There's an element of God is unexplainable. It is a concept that you can't put into words. I mean, I think a really interesting idea to make a documentary and ask people what they think what God is, because I don't believe you can actually explain it. I mean, throughout the history of man, I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I've read quite a bit of Joseph Campbell, and he was the one who kind of has disseminated all these myths from all these cultures from all time. And whilst there's similarities, they're all stories to try and explain the inexplicable, because we want to have some grasp of who we are and where we stand, but no one can actually say it because it's beyond words. It's an experience. God is an experience. Sorry, mate, I feel like you want to ask me questions. I'll keep going.
I think you're making a lot of sense.
But I meditate. I was introduced to meditation about 15 years ago, and I meditate twice a day. And if I ever feel close to knowing what God is, it's somewhere in the boundary of that half-hour period, twice a day when I meditate. I think the basic idea of the meditation I do is to quieten the mind, to just let all that instrument calm down. And I sometimes have experiences where I feel a little out of body, a little time. Ideas of Hugh Jackman as a father, as an actor, all those roles we play just seem to melt away. And somewhere in there is where I have some glimmer, some glimpse at what God is. And it's a feeling. And it's blissful. And it can go like that, and every minute you try and grab onto it, it's gone. We're householders, right? You're a householder, I'm a householder. We're not people who are born to sit up on the top of a mountain and meditate. Some are, and they're incredibly powerful what they do. But you and I, basically, we have a job and we earn money to look after a family or whatever. We give to society in whichever way we can and contribute. It's what in Indian or Vedic terms they call the way of the householder. But twice a day, even as a householder, twice a day for half an hour, I can dip into what I call that gold, that the substance of what is God, and just bathe in it. It's a different experience every time, but I get glimpses of something that energizes me on such a deep level that I'm not sure exactly what I'd do without that form of prayer. It's a way to be in touch with who I really am. I did a film called The Fountain, with Darren Aronofsky directed, and if you get a chance to look at it, it's his version of, I think, the meaning of life. And there was a truth in that, which is much of our life, our experience of this body, of being in this creation is of duality. That in fact there is an interviewer, an interviewee. There is a man and a man, or man-woman. There's night and day. There's pain. There's death. There's life, death, pain, pleasure. The world exists in this duality, and that in fact God exists beyond that, or the concept of God or truth is beyond those things. So as a child, God was very much me wrapped up in good and evil, God and the devil. And for many years I thought everything that was good was God and that everything was bad was the devil. And I suppose now my understanding of it is that it's neither and both at the same time. There's something beyond that. There's something beyond... I'll try and think of very simple examples. I'm sitting here talking through this body to you, and the camera is seeing a form talking. And there is God within this whole entity and outside of it that exists beyond the words I'm saying, beyond the actions I'm using, beyond the space. There is something linking all of us. That to me is God. My training, I suppose, spiritually has gone from church to a place called the School of Practical Philosophy, where I've studied for many years. It's big in London. It emanated from London, and it's truly only about the search for truth, natural law, and how to live your life, basically, how to be happy. And